Yes.
Yes. Why it's doing that. I don't know why it did that, but welcome to Trek Tonight anyway. I'm Chris Pitcher. Again, with me is Leo Genesek and Joe Townsell, and we are here tonight to talk about the latest episode from Star Trek Prodigy. How are you guys?
Good. Are we on? Because it says scheduled up in the corner.
No, it says live in mine.
Oh,
as
okay.
it does in mine. Live for me too.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess you're scheduled and we're live.
There you go. Always getting screwed somehow. All right.
No, I don't know. No, we're all here.
Yes. Good.
So yeah, it's been a busy week here at the Pitcher household, getting ready for Christmas, decorating, doing all that sort of stuff. You still cannot see my tree.
There it is.
It's there. I watch all these like news shows and all the sets are all decorated for Christmas. And I guess I need to put it over by Captain Kirk, maybe. Over there.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that needs to be where it needs to go. So.
I'm leaning jauntily against it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, how about you guys? Are you guys getting ready? I know we're not that long now.
I'm woefully behind in all, and with the exception of a little bit of shopping I've done. We've yet to put up a tree. I have an artificial tree I got from Target, which has the lights on, which is a big lifesaver. I'm also terrible at putting lights on Christmas trees. I remember doing it years and years ago. It was my mom.
It is a challenge. I'll tell you that.
Because it ends up like all of them are on the bottom part, and this like little like trail leading to the top. So
right.
I'm glad the scientists at Target were able to remedy my lack of acumen in that area.
Oh, great news!
Yeah, we have. Oh my goodness, we have 4 trees in our house. We have one in our dining room, one in our breakfast room. We have one in the living room, which is my Star Trek tree, and we'll look more at that next week. And then we have our big one that is a live tree, and that's where we all gather and have our Christmas morning and all that kind of stuff. But with that one, I do have to put the lights on it. And I'm a sentimental fool because I love the old twinkle lights from the 60s and 70s, and because that's what we had when I was a kid. And so I just can't give that up, and you can't get an artificial tree that has those built into it. So I sit there and I weave them around, and they all have a little clip. You clip it on the branch.
I remember the clip. We had ones that were looked like a candle with like a little metal base, and you would clip it on.
Right.
And those had sort of started, years ago. They started sort of going a little, showing their age. But I was able to find some replacements, like more modern ones. But I do like the candle with the white light. It seems very sort of European. I don't know.
Well, yeah, and then there are those Italian bubble lights.
Oh yeah, there was
yeah. Which my grandmother always had those Italian. My little Italian grandmother had those bubble lights, so they're a fond memory. I was over visiting a relative last night, and she had a little tree for my grandson that had little bubble lights on it. But
nice.
The problem with the bubble lights is you only get like 5 in a string, and they're not cheap.
So, no, well, that's how they get you.
Yeah, if you were to do a whole tree, my God, you'd be in for, I don't know. And my tree this year that I bought live was $1 an inch.
How much what is I know they've gone up for price.
A lot. Oh my God, it's outrageous. I spent $120 to buy a live tree that's going to die in 3 weeks. Yeah.
I've gotten to the artificial. I mean, I like the smell of a live tree and the sort of authenticness of it. But on the other hand, I'm not killing a tree, and I'm not going to be sweeping up pine needles for the next 9 months.
Yeah.
So,
Well, there was one year we actually bought a living tree. It came in a, it had the bulb on the bottom, and we put it there, and you had to put it in the bucket and all that stuff. But I can't even find those anymore. Like I looked to see if I could find, because we would have loved to have put an extra pine tree out in the yard, and I couldn't find one. So
that's too bad.
Yeah.
Well, for many years, my ex-wife and I, we had an artificial tree, and it was a great one. But the last couple of years I had it, the lights went out, so I had to put lights on it, and then it started losing needles like a real tree. And I said, you know what, my friend, you served me long and well, so I retired it a couple of years ago. And one of these days, when I get into a different living situation other than the shuttlecraft here, then I'll get a new one, because they are very handy, and you can always spray the stuff on them.
Yeah, you can. There's stuff you can spray on there that smells nice. So some of them are better than others, but yeah. Anywho, let me see if I can do this. I should have done it while you guys were talking, but here is a little sneak preview. Let's see if we can do this. I'm gonna put this on full screen. I'm going to go to my present thing here and share screen. And this, whoops, nope, that's not what I wanted to do.
It's cool though.
At all. Yeah, there I am. Hi guys.
Mirror universe, Chris.
Very meta.
Let's get rid of that. All right, we'll try this one more time. I did this in practice earlier, and I was fine. So let's see.
It's a live show, folks.
It is a live show. Why am I not seeing it now? Oh,
right. We're all friends here.
Because it's not there. And there we go.
Here we go.
Now let's see here. All right, we're gonna click on this. That is my Galileo shot. You have that one, Joe?
I have them all.
Yeah, that's an old one.
I have that one. I remember my mom saw the year before they had the Enterprise, but she told me like after Christmas, and of course they didn't have any more. And I'm like, why didn't you? I'm thinking to myself, why did you not want just buy it?
Right.
Tell me that day.
Yeah.
So I might do so.
Right. Exactly. I'll share one more. Let's see. This one I think is pretty cool. One of my faves. Let's get this in full screen.
Yeah, I should say I have them all until about a few years ago. So whatever I've missed in the last 3 or 4 years, I don't have. But
right.
Up to that, from the beginning up to that point, I'm set. So I got to just play some catch up, I guess.
Yeah. No, not again. Why? That is annoying. I selected it and everything. I don't understand. It just keeps disappearing on me. Well, we're obviously not Romulan. You're not going to make this a regular feature of the show. I guess not. Let's try this one more time. Share screen. Select.
Yeah, Leo and I are a droid, and you're annoyed.
There we go.
All right.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Movie era Enterprise. Very nice.
Yes, movie era Enterprise. So next week I'll figure out a way to do this better, and we'll share some more things. And I think Leo, you said you have some stuff hanging around too, right?
Yeah, I do. I've never taken them out of the box really because I haven't had a tree to set it up with.
Right.
Like my mom and I have a selection of ornament, but my mom's collection from over the years, we have enough for like several trees. We could do themed trees.
And so on. Yeah, I know.
But I do have some exclusives I got at New York Comic Con that were available only there, and then on eBay immediately after for an exorbitant price.
That's funny. I like that. On eBay immediately.
That's great.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
We were talking about the holidays. I'll make this brief. It was my birthday this past Tuesday, so
yes, it was.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you. I actually got 3 Star Trek related gifts, and I'm going to show them to you now. I'll do it.
All right.
First one is a set of Scotty's mints. I don't know if it's showing up backwards or
No,
not.
no, it's fine. I
No.
see it.
We're good.
Dilithium crystals.
That's right. Those are cool.
Little peppermints.
Are they designed to take the smell of booze off your breath?
I can only imagine that is strongly implied.
Be handy for Scotty. I know that.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's my point.
That's why he's the best engineer in the fleet. And let me see if I can bring this up. It's a Captain Kirk.
All right.
Spawn must take me. The little.
It almost looks like a ventriloquist act right now.
Yeah. What do you know, Captain? Well, and it's also what's kind of nice is you can see it's a magnet, so you can like put it on like like a cabinet or your door frame or whatnot.
Right.
I didn't know Captain Kirk had a steel plate in his head.
Or you could, or he could.
And my last gift was the Game Master's Guide from Modiphius. I got the player's guide earlier in the year. Now I have the matching cassette. So
nice. Well, speaking of which, my Planet Utopia book finally showed up. So I have the hard copy now of that for. There we go. Woo! There we go. 4 Star Trek Adventures. So that's great.
Right.
Cool.
Very nice. Very cool.
When we start talking.
Yes, let us jump in and talk about the episode. What did you guys think? What were some of the highlights of this week's episode for you guys?
Joe, do you want to go first?
I'll dive in. Sure, if you don't mind. I'll be brief, but basically, I thought it was really good. As I said before the show started, I think that the quality and the excitement level of the shows or the episodes are going up as we get toward the end.
Right.
A very nice take on Turnabout Intruder, only without the blatant sexism or the really hammy acting of William Shatner.
Right. Right.
No, really, really good. And I thought that both actors played the parts well as far as the mind swaps. Very believable and just really, really fun and exciting. I liked it.
Yeah, good. How about you, Leo?
I quite enjoyed it. A special shout out to the actor playing Dahl and of course Catherine Janeway, whose name again now just slipped out of me. Kate Mulgrew. Yeah. Kate Mulgrew. Apologies to Kate Mulgrew.
Yeah.
But they got their mannerisms. I mean, part of it is the dialogue. Obviously, it was they wrote Janeway as Dahl and vice versa.
Right.
But they did a lot of physical comedy, which obviously the actors aren't doing, but they're and the fact that Janeway was like figure gunning people and acting like immediately odd. It did take them. It was funny because it felt like they should have figured that out a little quicker. But it's not as funny if they immediately know something's wrong and act on it. They're kind of like, well, the Admiral's a little off, but my hat's off to both those actors because it is difficult to do that, especially because I'm almost 100% sure they're not always in the same room together, if at all. A lot of voice work is done separately,
right?
But they just got it so perfectly down,
right?
And while it was a high stakes episode, they still because they injected a little bit of humor, so it sort of made it sort of like you didn't feel like overwhelmed. And I think that's sort of important, especially for a kid show, because watching children in peril is always a bit of a it can go either way. Like it could be very exciting, like in a Harry Potter movie or something,
right?
Or it could be like my child was traumatized.
Yeah. Well, Keith joins us and says, fantastic episode. Love seeing Kate Mulgrew and Brett Gray play each other. So yes,
and leave it to Keith to give us the actors' names, where I couldn't remember Kate Mulgrew's either.
Oh yeah, I remember that one. Hey, John Van Goldstein is giving us a thumbs up, and
thank you,
John. You said, oh no, that's not it. Never mind. Okay, that was Joe. Joe.
Yeah.
Joe sent me a note and it said, "Hi guys," in private chat. That's funny. Okay. Yeah.
So
anyway, I really thought it was a fun episode. I thought it was very exciting. I thought it had a lot of action to it. I thought it was a really interesting premise. I thought the resolution to how the Admiral finds out what's really going on was really unique, because we all kept speculating about different things they could do.
Yeah.
But by doing this mind meld, this mind swap, ultimately, which they didn't really intend, was a really cool way of getting that across. And I also thought that it was very interesting that the diviner let her go.
Yes.
Which showed a little more of an interesting facet to his personality.
I would agree. I agree, because he was pretty much, I don't want to call him a one-note villain, but a very driven villain. And there was,
right.
As we later find out why he's doing it, which is understandable. If it's the thing, I understand it, but I don't agree with it.
Right.
Rather than try to, anyway, let's not delve into what could have happened. But I would say that the idea that, he actually cares for his daughter in a way that we seemed unaware of, because there was one episode in the first half of the series where it looked like he was ready to just leave her on this terrible planet, and get take the ship. But of course it was all this mind, let's say, I was about to call it mind effery, but
right.
I'm trying not to swear as much.
Admiral restraint.
So is the diviner on a redemption arc? Asked Keith. That's a good question. I think it's possible. It's a very Star Trek idea.
Yeah.
Because most Star Trek villains ultimately are understandable, even if you don't always agree with them, and sometimes they can become allies. Like the Klingons Federation were, fierce rivals at best, and at war at worst.
Right.
But they became friends as the as the Organians predicted. So
yeah.
There was another highlight for me, but let's hear what Camera Geek says first.
No. We can leave that one silent.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm just going to point out this, since you're in the highlights portion of the show, that
yes,
I really liked the part where Holo Janeway and Admiral Janeway are interacting together and sharing memories about their father, and thought it was reminiscent of some really cool things of the past. For example, where the actor is playing against him or herself, and doing a great job of it, like Major Barrett did a few times, as Lwaxana Troy talking to herself as the computer, and of course duplicate Bill Shatner's every now and then. So, but I just thought it was a kind of a poignant moment when they were able to share a nice memory about their dad.
It did make me think for the first time, and I'm not sure why it took me until now to think of this, but it did make me think, how do you get all of those memories into a holo program? Like how are they transferring that much data from somebody's personality and their life into an artificial construct? It's just an interesting. I don't know if it's ever been explained, and if anybody has any theories or ideas.
I mean, presumably they take psych reports. They take her, what is known of her family history, because she mentioned Molly, and Molly is her sister, who is not referenced in the original show, but she appears in a book written by one of the show writers on the show.
Mm-hmm.
She might have been one of the early executive producers. There's so many Star Trek books, and I read quite a few of the old TOS ones back when there was no new Star Trek coming out, and so that's what you did if you wanted to do Star Trek.
Right.
So there's only so many hours in the day, and I've not really delved into the next gen and ongoing literature, let's say.
Right.
So
I think Leo's onto something in there with the theory about a psych evaluation, because I'm reminded of early on in TNG when somebody asked, I think it was Tasha Yar asked Data, says, do you actually have all the memories of all those colonies? He says, well, no, I don't. I just have select. And I can see this particular memory of Janeway's being a select memory that might have been shared in a psych eval, which would be later downloaded into a
or maybe version. Even in her logs,
Yeah,
Maybe, yeah. Just interesting. Just an interesting thought. That's all.
It is. Although I did like the scene, and there's a definite difference between. And I know, I'm not saying like I'm a genius, but the way Hollow Janeway spoke was different than the way Admiral Janeway spoke. Even though it's the same actress, there was a different tone, a very different vibe to the two characters. And it was interesting seeing them play against each other, and it also, again, very Star Trek. She's like, I made all these assumptions about you, and every one of them was wrong.
Right.
So, much like my theory that this episode would take place mostly on the Dauntless while they were in the neutral zone. So I was wrong about that. And
don't you think that Hollow Janeway carries herself more like Voyager era Janeway, and the Admiral has a slightly different tone to her?
No, I would agree. She does.
I feel like there's a subtlety to it that Kate Mulgrew is doing with the older version of herself. Yeah. And I think that she's playing the Hollow version about as tight as she can to the way she played the character on her show.
I would take it a step further and suggest, because again, we're always talking about these very bright and very resourceful kids on the Protostar.
Right.
And, I think Hollow Janeway kind of emulates that to some extent. So we might be seeing an even earlier version of the actual Janeway in that performance, which of course goes straight to Kate Mulgrew. But I see some childlike qualities in Hollow Janeway, especially when she was so remorseful about, inadvertently leading him astray and that type of thing.
Right.
And just wanting to disappear and that type, so I think it's an excellent point.
Yeah. Yeah. Anywho, let's see. Did you guys have any issues with this episode?
No.
I can't think of any issues other than that Janeway immediately starts acting very oddly, and does finger guns and like, you guys are awesome, and just doing all this. Although I did like when he as Janeway was stretching out to be like, I gotta keep in shape,
right?
And you hear some cracks, and there's one punch like, oh, I pulled her back, which was a funny moment, because when you're 14 or however old he is, I think he's about 14.
Yeah.
The idea that your back could hurt doesn't even enter the equation,
right?
But Janeway is in very good shape, but she's older than she was on during the Voyager show. So
right.
I guess if I had a possible issue, and you guys can tell me if this is the case, because having only seen maybe at this point maybe half the total episodes in season 1, it seemed like Dahl within Janeway seemed like he was acting a little bit too Dahl. It's almost like he got a little bit less mature than he actually is as himself currently.
Right.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, that is an interesting point, but I think that he's also, since he is less it's weird because he was always a bit of this sort of like what's the character from Oliver Twist, the Artful Dodger. Yes,
right.
He had a bit of the Artful Dodger about him, like he was a bit of a con man, a little bit, and he was. But I guess there's a difference between like trying to talk a guard into letting you get past or somebody else, and suddenly having to embody an admiral who's been chasing you all this time. And so I don't think I think it works for how old he is. But I think that was kind of a panicky, like he's trying to cope with it and be super cash. And he was, of course, made it so much worse.
Right. Right. And again, I think that was supposed to be part of the humor of the episode too.
Yeah, I think so. Sure. Also, we've got a lot of window action in this episode, because first we see Dr. Noom looking out, like, I guess, his sickbay window, and he sees the ship, going underneath, and there's the bridge, and there's Murph giving him raspberries. And it's kind of like, and he does it like, like drops his pad, and, runs off. And it's funny that, they wouldn't be like, oh, we've got the ship in sight. there's not like a call to general quarters. He's just like, what? What's out my window? You know, and then we get to see, you know, they do charades on the bridge to tell Dal as Janeway what to do,
Right.
which was fun. But it
Yeah.
feels like, and I mean, I guess they have to improvise since they can't, you know, use hailing systems. But it is sort of wild to watch. You know, these very sort of, let's call them low tech solutions to high tech problems.
So. Right. Now, Keith makes a statement. He says the Federation's problem with augments is bugging me. And then he follows that up by saying it's stated that it's because of the eugenics wars, but that's an Earth thing, and the Federation has lots of worlds with different histories.
This is true, but I don't know if there's, isn't it? Because I'm thinking about next gen.
He goes on. It bugs me that such an otherwise benevolent society like the Federation wouldn't have advanced beyond that. Well, it is kind of true.
It's true, but it's also, I can understand, like Earth, maybe they're forbidden on Earth, and it seems weird that they wouldn't let them in Starfleet, although early Starfleet is very human based.
Right.
And I think a lot of TV shows are, you know, we see more humans because it's cheaper to put somebody in a uniform than it is to then have a really like elaborate, you know, face or head fixture made up for them.
Yeah, and I will say that I think that for it to be an issue in Strange New Worlds, because of the time that's set in,
yes,
I'm more comfortable with that. Keith does make a point that by the time you've gotten to Janeway's era and beyond, you know, beyond Voyager, that maybe that might have been revisited, but it was still an issue in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
So
Bashir's dad went to prison for
right.
like not like it wasn't like the rest of his life, but it was like, you know.
Now it didn't prevent Dr. Bashir from still being a Starfleet doctor.
They made a dispensation for him,
right?
Because he was unaware, and so on. But remember there was the other episodes where they had the augments who were all like a bit unstable.
Yeah.
And I guess that's usually what happens with them. They excel in areas, and it maybe warps their emotional development.
Right.
It is curious. I'm not sure what, you know, what.
But I will say, and this is not an issue. This was something that I liked in a way. When they said that, well, Dahl will never be allowed to join Starfleet, you know, that got me in the feels a little bit too. You know, I was like, oh wow, that's terrible. You know, so that's I actually liked that moment, but it's an interesting point you bring up, Keith.
It is, and I'll add by saying this is that it does seem that in certain eras that Starfleet can be a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction type of organization, because not too long after these episodes of Prodigy take place, suddenly we have a bigotry and a fear of synthetics, quote unquote.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and we had established that they were cool, you know, not long before that. So
right.
There's probably some more stories and some more dialogue and situations to tell to kind of maybe clear up some of these inconsistencies in Starfleet's approach to non-human figures.
Well, we've never had an episode where they're like, you know what, we're okay with augments. You know, we're not going to encourage that behavior, but
right. Well, and maybe that's a direction that Prodigy's going to go in.
Just having that thought. It's a good point.
Because we have Dahl, who is pretty much kind of the main character. I mean, he's one of the leads, certainly.
Yeah.
And that's his whole background. So
yeah,
you know, interesting.
Yeah, maybe he can be one of the influences. Say, you know what, maybe we need to rethink this. And
right.
Like I said, I mean, I say this a lot with Lower Decks, but with Prodigy too. I don't think there's a lot of throwaway or just coincidental references. I think they serve a purpose down the line.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and you know, we'll find out what happens in the next season of Strange New Worlds, because number one got arrested for, you know, her genetic background, which sounds terrible saying it out loud. Um, and we'll see what happens, because they're not going to write her off the show, I don't imagine.
No.
So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah.
Although it is interesting, because it is a possible reason for why we stopped seeing that character.
Possibly. Although, I think it would be kind of ballsy to get rid of 2 of your main characters in one season.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll do that. I think we'll see number 1 again, and I'm feeling that they will find some solution to this at some point.
Right.
I'm hoping.
Right.
I hope this. I guess this could be interesting. But one thing that occurred to me, and maybe others, is that as Chris points out, I mean, at some point we, number 1 went away, and we still hear that they're still apparently working on that Section 31 spinoff. Maybe she'll be part of that.
Maybe we'll see.
Yeah.
Did you explain her disappearance yet retain her in some fashion?
I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but it's on my brain right now. Did you guys, speaking of spinoffs, did you read that there was a rumor going on that there was going to be a Worf comedy?
I have not heard this.
No, go on.
I read that in an article the other day, and I'm like, that sounds like the stupidest idea I've ever. It's like, what would that be? I don't know if anybody's heard anything about this Worf comedy idea.
Please.
Please.
Is it a workplace comedy?
Yeah, it was an article that was all about what's coming up. And then they talked about the idea of this concept for a Worf comedy.
Wow.
I don't know.
I know Jonathan Frakes at one time years ago joked about, the Star Trek, the Rikers in space, doing a Star Trek sitcom. But of course, now we have Lower Decks to do that for us. So maybe you'll be there.
Yeah, right.
I'm sure he'll direct an episode, at least one.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Oh, wait. Hang on. What do we got here?
Maybe Keith has heard of it too.
If Dahl's story is about making the Federation confront its prejudice against augments, then that would be amazing for a children's show.
Yeah,
sure.
But I also think that would be appropriate for a children's show, especially one now.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
But it's setting up an interesting conflict for the future, and I'm curious to see where it goes. So,
right.
I also it was funny because I froze and counted a bunch of ships, like when they finally arrive, in Federation space.
Yes.
And they drop out of warp. I counted about 40 ships coming in, and then some more came in after that. So at least 42, 45 ships are all surrounding, which of course is terrifying for a number of reasons. One, that's a lot of firepower.
Right.
And even if they weren't carrying this hidden destruction of Starfleet in the Federation, would be terrifying enough. But the fact that they've got this, so. And Janeway ends up in the brig. Let's not forget that.
Right.
They switch bodies. They get back, and she wakes up in the brig, which of course makes sense.
Right.
And also, the security officer in the grand Starfleet tradition is standing with her back against the door rather than watching the prisoner.
Right.
Which has resulted in the deaths of so many security officers over the years.
Yes. Yeah, but it was a great little cliffhanger, and I'm really curious what the next 2 episodes are going to bring us, because obviously it's going to take more than one to tell the story.
It's a 2-parter.
Yeah.
For the next 2 weeks.
Yep.
I'm very much looking forward to them. It's interesting because the first half of the season, although there was an ongoing story, but it was mostly each week was a little adventure unto itself, a bit of a, not really bottle episodes because that would all be, let's say, on the bridge.
Right.
Ironically, the holodeck was sort of an unintentional bottle episode, but only in the literal sense.
Yep.
But the second season feels like they picked up momentum now that they understand what's going on. They know what's
I agree. Yeah.
So it's really the suspense and the forward momentum has really been
it's kicked into gear. And I thought that this was again very much a Star Trek episode.
I agree.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Especially if it goes on to introduce some of these concepts we're speculating that it might.
Right.
In the coming episodes.
Yeah. Yeah, but that is quite a fleet that they're facing.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Plus the Dauntless, which is a pretty formidable ship.
Right.
I love the fact that they overlap their warp fields in pursuit. I
was going to ask you guys what you thought of that.
I
thought it was a cool concept. I don't see anything that cries out. I mean, if Craig Lubin he might point out a scientific inaccuracy.
Craig Lubin is currently,
it seems plausible to me, and I thought it was really clever.
They've done it before, and I read somewhere, and I thought it was kind of a neat idea because it sort of ups the ante, and much like a lot of Star Trek science, it's dubious at best,
right?
But it's usually fairly consistent, So I quite enjoy that. Cameron,
he says it will be a exciting next couple episodes.
Yes,
and also I am way more into this children's show than I expected when I started watching it.
I have to agree with that statement for sure.
Yeah,
I agree. I think that we all feel that way. I mean, we entered into reviewing this and actually thought, sort of mistakenly, that maybe we needed to do kind of like a Trek Tonight Junior to review this show. Like to do a show that was really geared towards kids. But I think as an adult watching it, I'm enjoying it just as much as anything else.
Yeah,
it
does feel like it's designed for children and their parents to watch together.
Yeah.
So it's not so insipid that an adult is just like,
right.
Sort of in a fugue state thinking about, cleaning the gutters.
Right. Yeah.
But I think it's exciting, and I think if you are a Trek parent and want to start sharing Trek with your younger kids and worry that like, oh, is this going to be too heady or is it too dull for kids?
Right.
This is a great way of introducing it. It introduces a lot of concepts very gradually.
Totally right. Yeah, totally right.
I think that by the end you'll be like, oh, they might be like, hey, is there any more of this? And you're like sit down. I've got so much to show you.
Right. Exactly.
Well, I think those are great points, because one way I look at it is that for example, some of the best Disney animated things over the decades.
Yeah,
there's something for everybody. I mean, it's enjoyable for kids. They may not that look at it just for what it is, but also there's a little peppering of nice little touches for adults too. And for example, probably my single favorite line this week was Janeway telling everybody, "Yeah, I was turned into a salamander once."
Yeah.
That doesn't mean a lot to a kid, but we should know what she meant. And it was great.
Yeah, it was great. That was great.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying this. And, I enjoyed it when it first started. I was like, well, this isn't necessarily my, favorite, but there's enough to keep me coming back.
Right.
But I really feel like, a lot of that was world building
and
establishing the characters. So, it was a good call. Cause sometimes it feels like you're rushing to they're best friends. Well, I guess it's because they said it, not because it seems like it. We've seen the development of the relationships between everybody, which I quite enjoyed.
Yeah.
I do have a technical question. I'm not going to call it an issue because I could be wrong, but if I saw it correctly, so they used a phaser beam to create a link between Dahl and Janeway, but I didn't see how that was possible, really. I thought that would just basically blow her hand off or something.
Well, I think he was using a stun setting, I'm going to guess. So it's about the energy, about the linking of the energy.
I just took that. I sort of, to be honest with you, the whole sequence outside the ship in the warp bubble was a little iffy for me, but I let it go. I was like, okay, well, that's fine. But I do think that it was a stun setting. That was or a low level setting. Mm-hmm. That's what I imagined. And what it was doing was allowing them to be connected. Maybe
there's a setting on there we're not aware of that basically shoots out a string of plasma that solidifies, and
I don't know.
Stranger things have happened in Star Trek.
Right.
Well, also it begs the question that a phaser shooting a phaser at warp means that phasers travel at warp speed, because otherwise they would just like you would just like run into energy,
Right.
But let's not really pull back that curtain. Damn it, you remind me that my gutters need cleaning.
Yeah, I just had mine cleaned. So
sorry, Keith.
I'm one step ahead of you, Keith. But yeah. Let's see. Heath also says they stated earlier that the body swap happened when the Dauntless was shooting at the Protostar.
Yes.
Okay.
Interesting.
Good connection there. And again, Leo makes a great point that we've talked about over the weeks, is that sometimes you just have to accept it for what it is, unless it's not that much out there that just took me out of it. It's just, that's interesting.
Right.
But however it's intended to have worked, it worked. And that's the important point to the story and to the character. So that's all that's all that matters.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is you just have to accept whatever sci-fi nonsense they're throwing at us, and you'd be like, okay, those are the rules. All right, let's go.
Right.
I'm on board for whatever they have.
Well, sure. Doing. I mean, we're not sitting here nitpicking. Says, how come they can hear sounds in space? I mean, then you're getting ridiculous. I mean, that's just that's part of the drama, and that's what we accept.
Yeah.
Right. All right, cool. Hey, what rating do we have this week, guys, for this one?
Joe, you can go first.
Sure. I'm going to give it a solid 4 this week.
Okay.
I really didn't have any issue to say it wasn't a perfect episode. I guess there was just a couple things that kind of stood out, which have since been explained. But in comparing to other ones, I've given a higher rating at 4.5 and 5. I'm going to give this one a solid 4.
Okay. How about you, Leo?
I'm going to give it a 4.5. I enjoyed it. It was a good way of, because the thing is, like, eventually Janeway has to realize what's going on. Because she's sort of been English is my first language. She was pursuing the Protostar with a real fervor. There was a little unlike, or I would say it's not like everyday Janeway. We've seen Janeway get very intense about things in the past, but she's usually, she's not laid back, but she doesn't have like a hyper aggressive demeanor.
Right.
But she was much more aggressive with this, partially fueled by, her desire to find out what happened to Chakotay, one of her oldest and dearest friends.
Right.
So I enjoyed it. It is, I think that things are really going to start going bananas next week.
I agree.
So
I agree.
I'm very curious to see what's going to happen next.
Yeah. You know what? I would give it a 5, actually. That would be me. I'm gonna average us out, sort of, and we're gonna say this was a 4.5 star.
Sure.
Episode. But
cool.
I really thought it was great. While I had a couple of technical questions, it didn't take away from the enjoyment of the episode. I thought it was very exciting. There was a lot of action. I thought the concept was very cool. The mind swap was a great idea. For how to solve the problem. They did.
That is a good point.
Yeah, they did tap into Morse code, and they sort of made a joke. I've forgotten what it was about.
Oh, is that because he does SOS?
Right.
And she's like, "Oh, we can use that to find out what's going on, or tell him what's going on."
Right.
And he goes, and Jacob Hogg thinks that's all the Morse code that he knows, and I think he's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see here. Keith gives it a 4.6.
Okay, there you go, Keith.
There you go. He's breaking.
Change that graphic to
yeah, exactly. He loves that the tension is getting ramped up. Yes, I agree. I think that it's cool. They're Jules Hoffman gives us a thumbs up, by the way.
Thank you, Jules.
Hi, Jules. Good to see you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And of course, our friend John Van Gostein. Anyway, so what else do you guys have for this week? We're getting up on the quarter till hour.
I can't think of anything really else. I think we've covered it. I think the thing that really sold this episode was the acting. for Kate Mulgrew and the actor who plays Dal, whose name eludes me. Like most names, apparently elude me.
He told you, didn't he?
He did earlier.
Yeah,
but
no, I agree. The performances were top notch, especially with
Brett Gray.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Because like I said, she gave a very nuanced performance playing two different characters, really, two different stages of that character's evolution. And
she played three characters. She played possessed Janeway. She played Janeway in Dal's body.
Right.
Or like in her own body, is channeled through Dal, and then her hollow version. So like when she talked to herself, and there was a nice little moment where they're figuring things out.
I would imagine she must be having a blast.
Oh, I would imagine so.
I really would, because
apparently she wants to come back and do it live.
Yeah, that's
in some capacity. So I think that's great.
Yeah,
at the panel at New York Comic Con, I'd be curious to see what they come up with her. Like I know, like the Adventures of the Dauntless. I'd be down for that.
Right.
Listen,
hey, what class ship do you think that is?
I'm sure somebody online knows.
I bet you Keith knows.
I bet you he does.
Keith, what class ship is the Dauntless?
Is it the trowel class? Because it sort of looks like a gardening tool.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to sit there online and look it up in my book, but I thought Keith might know.
I don't know. I think the Dauntless was referenced in one of the books, one of the novels, of which I have not read.
Right.
Apologies to all those authors, but
it's not an Equinox class, is it?
No, it isn't. Although I think the Equinox class is kind of a neat ship. We saw that. That was what was the captain? It was John Savage
Ransom?
played the Ransom.
Captain Ransom.
Yeah.
Now you see that. I wonder if he has any relation to Jack Ransom.
I was just thinking that. Yeah, which would be great. That would be fantastic. But it's interesting though. I noticed that the warp nacelles on the Dauntless, they don't sit extended out like they do on most Starfleet ships. They really sit right underneath the ship.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
It's more like an outboard motor,
right?
Little,
Yeah.
And they're a little more. They're a little sort of regular looking. I think I would have to look up pictures, but I just imagine that, like I would say most of on the newer ships, the Narcissals tend to sort of come like a little more wider at the front and then sort of go taper towards the back, much like the Protostar is.
Yeah.
But these seem to be uniform, but I may be wrong because I'm sure if I'm wrong, I'm sure somebody online will be there to correct me.
Well, is it possibly the first of its kind? Is it a Dauntless class ship?
Could be. Like I said, I think it was. They took it from as they're doing now. They're like cherry picking elements from the books,
right,
and folding them in. Like Janeway's sister, who was not referenced once during the 7-year run of Voyager, but she was created by one of the producers on the show for her novel.
Right.
So it's kind of neat. They're just folding in these little details. Much like the Titan, there's a series of books about the Titan and Captain Riker and his crew, including Deanna Troi on the Titan, and then we got to see it in living color on lower decks.
The Dauntless has an NCC rating.
Yes,
it's not a prototype.
It's not a prototype, unlike the Enterprise from Enterprise, and also the first Defiant from Deep Space Nine, I think, was an NX.
Not to mention the original Excelsior,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it looks as though Janeway was the first captain of it.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
I don't know.
Actually, that raises a question, guys, which I may have missed, so please enlighten me. So does the Dauntless not have a captain? Is it just Janeway acting as captain? And
she's the commanding officer, even though she's an admiral or vice admiral.
Right.
Although I wonder whether she was given command of this, for this mission in particular, or whether that is her command.
Okay, guys. According to this website, Now this is Memory Alpha.
Yeah.
That ship is a Dauntless class ship. It's
I called it.
It's like the Constitution, is of the Constitution class.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it is, I guess, the first of the line for the Dauntless class.
Oh, very cool.
It makes sense because it's definitely unique. It has elements of others we've seen before, but it is a unique, one of kind of looking ship to me.
So there you go.
It has a remarkably small bridge.
Right.
Because
Keith, you know what? There I am sitting there looking it up.
Of course, Keith has the answer.
Ignoring the fact that Keith said to me, Dauntless class according to Memory Alpha.
Well, the great minds.
There you go. And then there's the NCC number. And then he also follows up by saying he thinks the Andorian is the captain.
Interesting.
No, they call him commander.
Yeah.
Maybe he took a temporary reduction in rank.
I'm just wondering if, because we're going to learn more about this with Geordi LaForge, but my understanding, at least from the original series, that a Commodore is above a captain but below an admiral.
Correct.
Often will command a ship. So maybe if Janeway's position becomes permanent on the Dauntless, maybe she'll take a shift down to Commodore.
It's interesting, like at least in the U.S. Navy, this is something I read once. The Commodore was a rank that was only bestowed during wartime. So they wind up to promote you, but if they promote you, you might be, sailing a desk. So they gave you like flag status, but you were able to keep your command. I'm sure there's a lot of military rules and regulations that go into those sorts of decisions.
Yeah, probably.
And Kirk, led the Enterprise for quite a while before he was reduced to captain again.
Well, the question is some people turn down promotions. Doesn't happen a lot, but sometimes they do because they being where the action is.
Right.
So, and we saw Janeway give orders to Picard, and I believe it was First Contact?
Nemesis.
Oh, Nemesis.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And she was flying a desk then. She didn't do it for the bridge of a ship.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to find out how she gets command of the Dauntless.
That could be coming.
Yeah.
We expect a full book report.
If it's been documented, Keith will find it, and if it hasn't, maybe
yes, Keith, I want that on my desk by noon. At any rate, great episode. I'm looking forward to the last two.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to be sorry to see it go on, the season to be over.
Yeah, I don't believe there's any new Star Trek coming out till Picard in February.
Right. So we are going to have to think about what we're going to yak about for the next month.
I think there's a lot of Trek that we could dive into because we haven't touched the movies.
And we also talked about doing a series, and I'm gonna post this poll on our website, on our Facebook. But we talked about doing a series where we picked the 5 most influential episodes of Star Trek, and then do a little deep dive into each one of those and why they were influential. So we're talking about influential in the sense of how they influenced the series as it went on.
Yes.
Not, was that a groundbreaking concept?
Yeah.
Right. So we each have picked a few episodes. I'm going to put it up in a poll this week, and then or within the next week or so. And then you, the audience, can vote because this is your program.
Yeah.
You can vote on which ones you think would be interesting to talk about, and then we'll take it from there. And then
that's a great idea.
We will revisit them. So yeah. So at any rate, all right, guys. We are at just a little below the hour. That's great. Is there anything else you want to share? Personal, what have you, with the audience tonight? With the,
I feel like I've given it too low of a grade, but no, I'm only kidding. That's only because I know the next 2 weeks are going to be solid 5. So I know this will be not quite as good as those two, so that's why I did that way I did.
Yeah.
But I have to say, with a so-called penultimate episode before a season ender.
Right.
In the past, that's either gone north or south, and I think this was definitely one of the better ones as far as going into the season ender. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah. Yeah. And I think we're going to kind of have to consider it because they are only a half hour. So the 2-parter really is like, you're giving us a full episode of a regular Trek, show.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be dragged out. I think it'll be good and quick.
Yeah, right. But we're going to have Christmas in between.
Yes.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
All right, Leo, anything for you before we roll out of here?
Not really. Just, I'm enjoying how much I enjoy doing this with you guys every week.
Same here.
So that is something I'm, we're well past Thanksgiving, but as I said, I'm thankful for all of this.
Right.
But, it is a time of year where it's easy to feel isolated. And sometimes it's nice to have those connections, whether you're watching this, like after the fact, or you're not somebody who likes to comment and you're just still enjoying it.
Right.
We're delighted to have you. And if you comment, better still.
Terrific.
So,
exactly.
It's
we love to hear from you.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, next week, we will be, you know what? I never ran this. Next week, the Trek Tonight Christmas special.
Yes.
December 22nd at 8 p.m. Eastern. Yeah. So we'll do something festive. I'm not sure what we're going to do, but we'll do something.
Santa hats. And Chris, you need to move your tree to your credenza over there.
Yes, I do. Is somebody going up to bed? Somebody wants to dance. Oh, they're just in time.
Yes.
For festive dancing. So let us put up now this one says it's the outro. We'll see. Maybe it's the intro. Well, no, who knows? You never know here.
Hi, ladies.
All right.
Hey.
All right, guys. Till next week. Have a great week. Have fun getting ready for the holidays, whatever you celebrate. And we will see you next week here at the same time.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, guys.
You did it.